Hilchos Tefillah Perek Chamishi. Laws of Prayer, Chapter 5. Yesterday we learned 5 things Shem Akvin et Tefillah. They're essential. If you don't do them before davening, you have to go back and daven again. Today we're going to learn about another 8 things that you also have to do when you daven, but they're not me'akev, which means if you didn't do them, after the fact you don't have to daven again. But initially, you should do it, you should be very careful to do it. Halacha Aleph. Shmona dvarim tzarich hamitpalel lehizaher bahen v'la'asotan. There are 8 things that a person davening has to be careful with and do them. Ve'im hayad dachuk o ne'anas, but if he was under pressure, or something happened beyond his control, o she'avar v'lo asaotan, or he purposely didn't do them, en ma'akvin. They don't hold you back. They're not essential to the davening. And b'di'avad, what's called after the fact, if you didn't do it, it's fine. Ve'elu hein. And they are the following. Number 1, amidah. You have to stand when you daven. Number 2, v'nochach hamikdash. You have to face the temple when you daven. Number 3, v'tikun haguf. You have to have your body in a prepared state. We'll see what that means. Number 4, v'tikun hamalbushim. Your clothes have to be adjusted. Besides for what we said yesterday, you have to cover yourself, just your basic nakedness. It's also important to wear proper clothing. Number 5, v'tikun hamakom. Adjust the place. Means the place that you daven. Not just that it should be not dirty, but you should choose a specific place where you daven. We'll see later. V'hashvayat hakol. You should control your voice. V'hakri'ah. And you should bow. V'hishtachavaya. And you should prostrate yourself. This is after the tefillah. We're going to see this is about tachanun. This is about falling on your face after the Shemona Esrei, as we have the custom to do today. Halacha bet amida ketzad. What does it mean standing? En mitpalel ela me'umad. You're not allowed to daven, ideally, unless you're standing. That's why we call the prayer Amidah, right? The Amidah. Amidah means the standing prayer. And it's because when we daven, we're like bringing a sacrifice. And by the sacrifice, as it says, La'amod l'sharet. You have to stand when you serve. So too, you stand when you daven. Haya yoshev basfina. O ba'agala. What if you were on a boat? Or in a wagon? So it's not so simple to stand. Im yachol la'amod yamot. If you can stand, it's time for davening. Stand up and daven. V'im lav if not, yeshev bimkomo v'yitpalel. You're allowed to stay in your place and daven. Let's say it's too dangerous. Let's say if you get up, you might fall down. So you can sit. They say even today in cars and in airplanes, if you're able to stand, good. That's the best thing is to stand. But if you can't stand and it's time for davening, it's going to pass if you don't daven now. You can daven even sitting. Choleh mitpalel afilu shochev al tzido. A person who's sick can daven even if he's lying on his side. V'hu sheyachol lechaven et da'ato, assuming that he can focus, because one of the primary elements of davening is kavanah. You have to be able to have intent. V'chein hatzamei v'hara'ev. Somebody who's thirsty and somebody who's hungry, harehein bichlal cholim. They're included in the category of sick people. And therefore, im yesh bo yecholet lechaven et da'ato yitpalel. If a hungry or thirsty person is able to focus his mind, he should daven. V'im lav, and if not, al yitpalel ad sheyochal v'yishteh. You should not daven until you eat and drink. This is one of the sources from Minhag Chabad, that we eat specifically mizonot, something before we daven. We don't wash, but we eat before we daven, because today we're very weak. We can't focus properly on davening if you don't have something in your system. So you put something in, eat a little drink, and you daven. If you were riding on an animal, so here the Rambam says it's not even optional. When you're on a boat or you're on a wagon, if you could stand. If not, then you sit. If you're on an animal, you have to sit. Even though you have somebody who can hold your animal. In other words, you can stop, and no problem. You can daven standing. Lo yered, you should not go down. Ella yeshev bimkomo v'yitpalel. You should rather sit on the animal, keep riding and davening. Kedei shetehei da'ato miyushevet alav, so your mind will be calm. Apparently, in those days, if you got off your animal, even if you had someone to guard it, your mind was distracted. Maybe someone's going to steal it. Maybe robbers will come. So the Torah knows that, and it says, in this case, milechatchila, initially, stay on the animal and daven. That's number 1. Number 2, halacha gimel. Nochach hamikdash ketzad. What does it mean to face the Bet HaMikdash? It means that wherever you are, that's where you have to be directed. Haya omed b'chutz ha'aretz, if you're standing somewhere outside of Israel. Machazir panav nochach eretz Yisrael u'mitpalel. You have to turn your face towards Israel and pray. That's why over here, we're in America, we face east. But if you go to other places, they might face other directions, towards Israel. Haya omed ba'aretz, if you're in Israel, mechaven et panav keneged Yerushalayim. Turn your face toward Jerusalem. Haya omed bi Yerushalayim, if you were standing in Yerushalayim, mechaven panav keneged HaMikdash. You have to face your face towards where the temple structure was. Haya omed b'mikdash. Let's say in the times of the Bet HaMikdash, you were standing in the Mikdash. Mechaven panav keneged bet kodesh hakodashim. You turn your face to the direction of the Holy of Holies.
If you are in Israel and you're east of Jerusalem,
כן. כן, כשהייתי במגדל העמק, בצפון. זה
צפונית לירושלים.
כן, זה הארון הקודש היה, כן, בדרום, נכון.
זה צפונית מזרחית.
בישיבה החב"דית, כן. I think that's how they do it in all the shuls, no? It's like Hakol Yerushalayim. Suma, if somebody is blind, or somebody who's not able to tell directions. You don't know where you are. Or if you're going on a boat and you don't know directions, you don't have the navigation devices that you need. So you focus your heart towards Hashem, towards the divine presence, and you daven. Other commentaries say that on the boat, you're just afraid that you might fall. It's not specific to the directions. You're just worried, like you may know the directions, you're just worried if you face that way, the wind might come and you might fall over, something like that. So the point is, if you can't face east or you don't know how to face east or towards Israel, then you just have in mind that you're davening to the Shekhinah and that's it. That's number 2. Number 3, Halacha Dalet. Tikkun haguf ketzad. What does it mean to set up your body? Before, we talked about covering your body. That's a separate thing. How do you set up your body for davening? Kishuhu omed batfilah. When you're standing in davening, tzarich lechaven et raglav zu b'tzad zu. First of all, you have to put your feet together. They have to be aligned as one. Why? One of the reasons is because it's like an angel. By the Malachim it says, v'ragleihem regel yeshara. They have one straight leg. So when we put our feet together, it's like one leg, like the angels. But I saw yesterday that the Maharal writes, Maharal Prague, he says the reason why we put our feet together is to show ourselves. So when you have your feet together, you can't move around, right? You don't have freedom. So when we worship Hashem, we also don't have freedom. We submit to His will. We lock ourselves in to do things the way He wants us to do them. So that's feet together. V'noten einav lemata. Your eyes should be face down. Ki'ilu hu mabit la'aretz, as if you're looking downwards. V'yiyeh libo panui lemala. But your heart should be focused above. Ki'ilu hu omed b'shamayim, as if you're standing in the heavens. Umaniach yadav al libo kfutin. You put your hands near your heart, tied up. Hayemanit al hasmalit. The right hand over the left hand, over the heart. Ve'omed ke'eved lifnei rabo. And you stand like a servant in front of your master. Be'ema bi'ira v'fachad. With fear, with trepidation, with awe. V'lo yaniach yadav al chalatzav. And you don't put your hands on your hips. It's not respectful. So many communities today, they also do this. They daven like this till today. They put their hands on their, like this. They bow a little, bowing down. Many of the earlier Rabbanim, Rashi Yeshiva, we didn't see them do that. So that's why many people don't do this today. But still, everything else, feet together, looking down, heart up, that's for sure part of davening. Halacha Hey. Preparation number 4. Tikkun hamalbushim ketzad. What does it mean to adjust, to fix your clothing? Mitaken malbushav tchila. Before you daven, you have to check your clothing. Umitzayen atzmo. You make yourself look excellent. Umahader. And beautiful. Shene'emar, as it says, Yishtachavu la'Hashem behadrat kodesh. You bow to Hashem in the beauty of holiness. So you have to look good, presentable. V'lo ya'amod batfilah ba'afundato. You should not stand to daven with your afunda. There's 2 interpretations of what afundato is. I couldn't get a big paper, but you see here, one it says it's just an undershirt. So you're only wearing the shirt closest to your skin. Other one says it's a money belt. Call it a fanny pack today. But people used to, like a pouch, they used to do it all the time because they used to keep their money right near them, so you wouldn't lose track of it, but you can't daven with this. V'lo berosh miguleh. Neither can you daven with an uncovered head. V'lo beraglayim migulot, nor with uncovered feet. You can't daven barefoot. Im derech anshe hamakom, if it was the way of the people of the place, shelo yamdu bifnei hagdolim ela bebatei haraglayim. They would only stand in front of big people with shoes. In other words, it's very subjective. You have to look at the place and see how people dress respectfully. If people do go barefoot out of respect, then you should go barefoot. I remember there was a man I still know, he's still alive in Yerushalayim, and he would always daven without shoes. That was their way. So when he came to visit his son here in LA, and I was in the yeshiva, he came to the yeshiva, he asked for a mat. He didn't daven on the floor, he asked for a mat, took off his shoes before davening, and he would daven with socks.
I saw
That's like, it was, for him, that was the way of respect. But if the way of respect is to do the other way, then you do the other way. The point is, when it comes to these things, it's very much how people do it. What do people consider respectful? Then there's rules that apply everywhere. Ubechol makom, no matter where you are, I don't care what custom you have, lo ye'achoz tefillin biyado, v'sefer Torah bizro'o v'yitpalel. You can't daven while holding tefillin in your hands, not wearing them, holding them in your hands, or holding a sefer Torah. Why? Because you're worried you're going to drop them, so you can't focus properly. Because your heart is busy thinking about them, and it's not focused. Also, v'lo ye'achoz kelim uma'ot biyado. You can't hold any other articles or money in your hand, distracting. Aval mitpalel hu v'lulav biyado b'imot hachag. On Sukkot, you can daven Shemona Esrei with your lulav in your hand, mipnei shu mitzvat hayom, because it's the mitzvah of the day. We're not worried about focus loss. Hayam asui al rosho. If there was a load on your head, v'higi azman tefillah, and it came time for davening, im haya pachot me'arba'a kabin. If it was less than the weight of 4 kav, which is a measurement in halacha, mafshilo la'achorav u'mitpalel bo. You just turn it to the back. It can be still hanging on you, not on your head. You put it over your back, and you can daven with it because it's less than 4 kav. It's not such a big weight. Haya arba'a kabin, but if it was already 4 kabin, manicho al gabe karka ba'achar yitpalel. You have to first put it down, and then you daven. Derech kol hachachamim v'talmidehem. Additional law, the way of all the sages and their students, shelo yitpalelu ela keshehen atufin. They would only pray when they were wrapped in a talit. They never davened outside any other circumstance. They made sure that they were davening with a talis. Halacha vav, tikun hamakom ketzad. What does it mean to adjust the place? This is number 5 in the list of 8 things for today. The place has to be a proper place to daven, which means ya'amod b'makom namuch. You should stand on low ground. Don't get up on a big stage or something. We'll see exactly about the size of the stage, but you shouldn't get up on something high. Stand in a low place. V'yachazir panav lakotel. And you turn your face to the wall. Now, it doesn't mean you have to daven facing the wall. It means there should be nothing mafsik, nothing interrupting between you and the nearest wall, or in other words, no like big object should be in the middle of the shul and you daven by that object. You should daven next to a wall, or at least with nothing interrupting between you and the wall. V'tzarich liftoach chalonot o ptachim keneged Yerushalayim. You should open windows or doorways towards Yerushalayim, kedei yitpalel kenegdan, to daven corresponding to them. Shneimar, as it says by Daniel, v'chavin ptichan le be'ilitei v'gomer. He used to open windows in his attic and daven towards Jerusalem. Today, many shuls don't have that. They just have windows in the shul to remind us of that. But not so do we open the windows during davening. V'kovea makom litfilato tamid. You should also have a set place in the shul where you always daven. Ve'en mitpalel bechurba. You should not daven in a place of ruins. If a house fell down, it's considered to be very dangerous. You don't daven there. V'lo achorei beit hakneset. You also shouldn't daven behind the shul, ela im ken hechazir panav lebeit hakneset, unless you turn your face to the shul. There's a lot of argument what this means. Some people say it means literally, if it's a shul building, you daven behind the shul, you have to turn your face to the shul, even if that's not to east. Understand? Because if you would face east and you're behind the shul, looks like you're turning away from the shul. That's what others say. That's one opinion. Other opinion says, no, it just means literally, you can't stand behind the shul, you have to just go into the shul. That's it. Or turn your face to the shul, which is east.
So what we did
not if it's not east.
So what we did a few years ago when it was COVID and we did Yom Kippur in that.
No, but we moved the shul there. Ve'asur leshev b'tzad ha'omed batfilah o la'avor lefanav. It's forbidden to sit next to somebody who's standing in the middle of Shemona Esrei, or to walk by him, ad sheyarchik mimenu arba amot, till you put a distance between yourself of 6 feet, 4 amot. Otherwise, it's considered disturbing. Halacha zayin. Lo ya'amod b'makom gavoa shlosha tfachim o yoter v'yitpalel. You should not stand on something which is 3 tfachim tall, which is about 12 inches, and daven. So if it's like a big box in the middle of the shul, you don't stand on the box and daven. V'lo al gabei mitah, v'lo al gabei safsal, v'lo al gabei kiseh. You don't daven on top of a bed, on top of a bench, on top of a chair. Haya binyan gavoa. But if there was a big structure in the shul, like for example the bima, it's a bigger structure. Im yesh bo arba amot al arba amot, shehu shir habayit. If the size of that structure is 4 by 4 amot, which is about 6 feet by 6 feet, which is considered a halachic house, harehu ka'aliyah. It's like a second story. Umutar li'itpalel bo, and you can daven on it. That's why we see people here davening in the bima. No problem, because it's a separate structure. Or many rabbanim, they daven on an elevated stage. You see in their shuls, they put them on a big stage and they daven because those stages are big enough.
Are you allowed to daven right there with the aronis?
Yeah, same thing. Exactly. Nachon, zaya makom na'aleh, but it was a big enough. It was a big enough place. And also, if that elevated space had walls around it on all sides, even though it isn't 4 by 4 amot, it may be smaller, but it's delineated with walls, you can daven there because its height is not recognized because you separated it as its own area. Workers that were doing work on top of a tree, or berosh hanidbach, or on top of a nidbach. There's also two opinions about this. One opinion says it just means on top of, like they're in the middle of building a wall, and he's on the wall. Others say it's a specific type of wall. They would put up two boards. That's not the greatest picture, but you put up two boards, and they would pack the middle with earth. And they're standing on top of this earth. That's a nidbach. Either way, they're on top of a wall that's being built, whether it's a brick wall or it's an earthen wall. Point is, they're on top of it, or berosh hakotel, or on top of a regular wall. V'higia zman tefillah, and it comes time of davening. You're up there in the sky. What do? You're din lemata umitpalalin. They have to go down, daven, v'chozrin limlachtan, and go back to their work. But if they're on top of an olive tree or a fig tree, mitpalalin bimkoman, they should daven where they are. It's too hard to get down. What should workers daven? The full thing. They're in the middle of working. They're on someone else's clock. So it depends. If they were working just for their meals, that's all they get paid is their meals. They daven fully, 3 full prayers of 19 blessings. But if they were working for pay, they have to give the owner the maximum benefit. So they can only daven the short version of Havinenu, which is the first 3 blessings, the 3 last blessings, and the shortened summary in the middle. Uben kach, either way, if you're a worker, en your din lifnei ateva ve'en nosin et kapehen. They can never be the chazan, nor can they go to do birkat kohanim if they're a kohen. It takes too much time. You can't detract from your boss's time. So you daven, short version, stay in the work. That's all what's called tikkun hamakom, right? Adjusting the place where you daven. Now, number 6, halachat tet, hashvayat hakol ketzad. What does it mean to control your voice? Lo yagbia kolo betfilato. The first thing is, you don't raise your voice in davening. The idea of davening is to ask for your needs. Bakashat tzrachav. You say that with your words. Those words should be said quietly. You don't raise your voice. V'lo yipalav libo. On the other hand, you don't daven in your heart, which means you can't just scan the words and not say anything. Ela mechatech hadvarim bisvatav. You have to pronounce the words with your lips. Umashmiya leoznav belachash. And make it heard to your ears, make it audible, but quietly. Because when you're in front of a king, you act in an honorable way, in a more humble way. But lo yashmiya kolo, you should never make your voice heard, ela im ken haya chole, unless you were sick. O she'eno yachol lechaven libo ad sheyashmiya kolo. Or you can't focus unless you hear the words. Harei ze mutar, then it's permitted to raise your voice. Ubilvad shelo yehe b'tzibur, but provided you don't go into a community, you don't do that in public, kedesh lo titerev datan mikolo, so you don't confuse them from your voice. If you have a problem that you have to always hear yourself, go outside, daven alone. Don't disturb the community. Halacha Yud, preparation number 7. Kri'ah ketzad. What does it mean to bow during davening? Hamit palel, when you daven Shmona Esrei, korea chamesh kri'ot b'chol tefillah o tefillah. You bow 5 times during every prayer. Bibracha rishona b'tchila o basof. In the first blessing, beginning and end. Baruch atah Hashem, we bow down. And also before Magen Avraham, so beginning and end. Ubahodaya b'tchila o basof. And also in Modim, Anachnu Lach, we bow by Modim, and then also Baruch Atah Hashem, Hatov Shimcha L'chana Leodot, we also bow over there. Ukishugomer Tefillah, and also when you finish the davening, by Oseh Shalom, Korea Uposea Shalosh Psiot La'achorav, you bow a little bit, and you back up 3 steps backwards. Ukishuhu Korea, when you bow at the end of davening, Noten Shalom Mismol Atzmo, Va'achar Kach Mi'imin Atzmo. You turn your head to the left, and then to the right. We're going to see why in the next halacha. Va'achar Kach Magbia Rosho Min HaKriya. Then you lift your head from the bowing. Ukeshu korea ba'arba'a kriyot. But when you bow the other 4 bowings, korea bebaruch. You always bow or bend your knees by Baruch Atah Hashem. Ukeshu zokef b'Hashem. And you raise yourself by Hashem's name. When do we say these rules? Behediot, by a regular person. Aval kohen gadol. But the high priest, korea bitchilat kol bracha ubesof kol bracha. He would bow in the beginning and at the end of every bracha of Shmona Esrei. V'hamelech, and the king, who is the ultimate level of nullification to Hashem, he had to always show his humility. Kivan sheshacha barishona. Once he bows in the beginning of the davening, eino magbia rosho ad shegomer kol tfilato. He wouldn't lift his head till he finished the whole davening. He was in this bowed position the entire davening. Halacha Yudalev v'lama noten shalom lismalot tchila. If in Torah, right is always important, so when we back up at the end of Shemona Esrei, why do we go to the left first? Because your left is the right of somebody that's opposite you. Klomar, which means to say, if you're standing in front of the king, noten shalom liyamin hamelech v'achar kach l'smol hamelech. You first give peace to the right side of the king and to the left side. The kavu, and the sages established, you should back out of davening like you back out of being in front of a king. So you bow to the left and then to the right. All of these bowings, you have to bow so far to the point that all the vertebrae in your spine stick out. It's a pretty far bow. Everything is thick, so you can feel the bumps of the vertebrae. You make yourself like a bow. But if you bow a little bit and it already hurts, and it appears as if you're using all your power, you don't have to worry about that, it's fine. You did your best. Halacha Yud Gimel, the final preparation, or the final part of davening. What does it mean to prostrate yourself by davening? It's not during Shemona Esrei, it's afterwards. After you pick up your head from the fifth bowing at the end of the Shemona Esrei, Yeshev la'aretz, sit down on the ground, v'nofel al panav arza, fall on your face to the ground, u'mitchanen b'chol ha'tachanonim sheyirzeh, and plead for all pleadings that you need. Today we do this by tachanun. We don't go all the way down, as we'll see soon, but that was the original custom. Kri'ah ha'amura b'chol makom, when you find in the Torah the expression kri'ah, it means al birkayim, going on your knees. When you find the expression kidah, it means al apayim, on your face. And when you find hishtachavaya, the expression of prostration, it means zep hishut yadayim v'raglayim, it means putting out your hands and feet all the way on the floor. Ad shenimtza mutal al panav arza, to the point that you're lying on your face on the ground. Halacha Yudalid kishehu osen nifilat panim achar tefillah. When we do this falling on the face after davening, yesh mishu hu oseh kidah, v'yesh mishu oseh hishtachavaya. Some used to go only on their face, not fully prostrated, and some would go all the way out on the ground flat. However, ve'asur la'asod hishtachavaya al ha'avanim. You can't prostrate yourself on stones. Ela b'mikdash, only in the temple. As we already explained in Hilchot Avodah Zarah. Also, ve'ein adam chashuv rashai lipol al panav. An important man cannot fall on his face. Ela im kenu yodea ba'atzmo shu tzadiki Yehoshua. Unless he knows that he's a tzaddik like Yehoshua. Yehoshua did it once because he was super humble. But if you're important, you can't. It's degrading to go out on the ground. Aval mateh panav ma'at. What you should do is you lean your face over a little bit. Ve'eno kovesh otan bakarka. You don't bury them in the ground, which is, by the way, what we all do today. We sit down and we go like this. We cover our faces, so our face is on the arm, but not on the ground. Umutar le'adam litpalel b'makom zeh v'lipol panav b'makom acher. It's permitted to daven Shemona Esrei in one place and then do the tachanun and fall on your face in another place. Halachat tedvav minhag pashut b'chol Yisrael. It's an accepted custom among all Israel. She'en nefilat apayim b'shabbatot v'moadim. We do not fall on our face. We don't do tachanun on Shabbat or holidays. V'lo b'Rosh Hashanah, v'lo b'Rosh Chodashim, v'Chanukah, v'Purim. We don't do it on the New Year. We don't do it on Rosh Chodesh, the new month, or Chanukah or Purim. V'lo b'mincha shal arvei Shabbatot b'yamim tovim. We don't do it during mincha of Friday afternoon, eve of Shabbos or eve of holidays. V'lo b'arvit sheb'chol yom, or by the evening prayer every day. V'yesh yichidim shenoflim al pneihem b'arvit. There are some people who do fall on their faces by arvit by evening, uv'yom kippurim bilvad, but on Yom Kippur, noflim al pneihem b'chol tefillah, we fall on our faces every davening, mipnei shu yom tchina u'bakasha v'ta'ani, because it's a day of pleading and requesting and fasting. Even today, we don't do that. We don't do on every davening, only during Musaf. But the other prayers, we do say al-chet, we do say the confessional prayer.